Hello and welcome back to the Sin City Gun Guy channel. I am the Sin City Gun Guy, and today we are going to complete the upgrades to this Ruger 1022 Takedown. Welcome back, folks. Last video we upgraded this gun with the Volquartsen target hammer and the automatic bolt release. Today we're going to finish the upgrades to this gun by installing the XS ghost ring sights to this rifle. The process is fairly simple and straightforward, so we'll go over that. It shouldn't take too long. We'll talk a little bit about why these sights are good and why I think they're a really good quality option for your Ruger 1022. When you order your XS sights, this is how they come. Now, word up front, these are not inexpensive sights, but they're also not cheap sights. These are all steel. They're made in the USA. As a matter of fact, they're made in Texas. And they are extremely rugged and durable, and you'll see that as we take them out here. So let's take a look and see what's in the blister pack here. We'll dump all this out. You first get the installation manual, which is very thorough and very complete. And these instructions actually cover their entire line of sights, but we will set that aside. Of course, it came in a nice little blister pack. What you get is the rear sight, and this has the large aperture already installed in it. And I'm going to switch out for the small aperture, which is here, because I think on a 22 this is a more appropriate aperture for the type of shooting you're going to do. We come with the front sight. You come with the two screws for installing the rear sight. You come with a little bottle of red Loctite, a nylon punch so you don't mar your gun when you're removing sights, and then you have two plastic test posts. Now, the instructions will tell you that you use these in lieu of the front sight to make sure that the gun zeroes properly with that height, or nearly properly with that height of sight installed. What I can tell you is that I installed it onto my 1022 and it zeroes perfectly. Only minor adjustments to the elevation was needed on my rear sight. So because it's the same gun, we're not going to use these today. So this is the kit, and let's now talk about the rifle. The rear sight is actually going to fit into these two holes here in the back of where you would normally mount the scope rail if you were going to mount a scope on here. We will take out the factory rear sight because you don't need it, and it just fits in there in a dovetail. And then the front sight is also dovetailed in there, and so we'll be taking that out and replacing that. Now, a couple of things, and I talked about this installation at length in the article I wrote on my Ruger 1022 Takedown, an article you can read at the 1022page.com, and I will provide a link for the page at the bottom of the description. When I installed mine, what I found was that the front dovetail was very loose. In fact, when I went to install it, I was able to remove the front sight of my Ruger 1022 with simple thumb pressure. This one, no, this is actually going to need to be driven out, and that's good. That's the way it should be. And even when I installed the front sight into my gun, it was still kind of loose. There was a generous application of this Loctite, and it definitely seems to have done the trick. But something to be aware of, at least with my gun, the dovetails were not cut well. They were a little big. I'm going to first take out this large aperture, and we are then going to replace it with the smaller aperture. And if the end user here wants to switch them back out, he can. Now, the way that these sights work, and I'll bring this up as close as I can, and I hope that's not getting blurry. There's a little set screw here and a little set screw here. When you want to adjust the rear sight for windage, you simply loosen up on one side and tighten up on the other, and that'll push the sight over one side or the other. Also, when you loosen up on these, you can then back out the peephole, the ghost ring. It just screws in, as you can see. I'll try to show it to you here. I'm trying to show you small parts, and they're small black parts that don't have a lot of contrast. But this is threaded, and it just threads in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a smaller screwdriver, and we'll be right back, and we're going to take care of that. All right, so we've taken the two screws out so that you can set screws, so you can get this out here. And we're just going to take this large aperture out, and you can see there's this little piece that slides here. So as you adjust those screws, this whole piece is going to move back and forth and adjust the zero on your sight. So we're going to take our new, or our different aperture, and we're going to just thread that in. And then we are going to take our little set screws again, and we're going to set those in. And we're going to get out to the range this weekend, so we're going to adjust this up. And once it's adjusted, we'll get some Loctite back in here, but I don't want to do that until we've got it sighted in and we know that it's shooting exactly where we want it to go. Otherwise, I would definitely Loctite these guys in so that you don't have to worry about them backing out. Now, actually, a word on that. These do come with a little bit of Loctite in there, and I never added any additional Loctite to mine, and I've never had them back out. Okay, so now we have the smaller aperture in here, so that's what we're going to go with. So, in order to install this rear sight, like I said, it's a very simple process. We're just going to take these two little screws out of the receiver of the Ruger. Again, a small screwdriver is sufficient. Okay, so what I've done is I've set this up here. What we need to do now is degrease everything here. So we're just going to take some alcohol and clean that up. Make sure that there's nothing that's going to interfere with the thread locker. So we're going to clean this up, and then we are going to clean the bottom of that up. And there really shouldn't be anything there, but we'll just make sure that it's good and clean. Wipe that up. So like I was saying, I'm really fond of these sights for this type of a gun, and like I explained in my article, and I explained in the last video, my goal with this gun was to have something that would be a rugged, go-anywhere gun, something I didn't have to worry about scope, glass breaking, or batteries, or anything like that. And these sights really seem to fit the bill. Now, like I said, these are not inexpensive sights. These sights run around $85, so they are not cheap. And I know some of you may be saying, well, for 85 bucks, I can almost buy myself a red dot. And that is true. You can almost buy yourself a red dot. But the question is going to be, if you have a gun that you're going to be taking out in the woods with you, that you're going to be relying on, do you want a gun with a cheap red dot or really good irons? And I think I'd rather go with the really good irons. All right, so the alcohol, we've wiped it up, it's dried. We're just going to place some thread locker here on the base of the sight. What we want to do is we want to place this down and line it up with the two holes. So we're going to place it just like that. And then we're going to take the two included screws here. And they are bigger than the heads are bigger than the set screws that you get with the rifle. So we're going to take a little drop of thread locker into each one there. Make sure we stay lined up. And a little bit on the end of the screw. And we're going to drop that in. And I'm going to start tightening it, but I'm not going to tighten it all the way because we just want to get these started. Now, another thing that some people might be wondering is, where this is a takedown rifle, is there any change in zero when you remove and reinstall the barrel on this thing? I have put a lot of rounds through my 1022 Takedown. I have not noticed any issues of that nature. In fact, it does return to zero. And if you were running a scope, the scope would be mounted up here anyway. So certainly if you were going to have a problem, you definitely encounter it with a scope. And neither my experience nor anything that I have read anywhere would lead me to believe that that is an issue with these guns. So now that these are in, we are going to screw these down. So we've got our thread locker. And like I said, this is a pretty easy install. It's a pretty simple process. Not a lot to it. I'm going to take a little dry thing and I'm going to make sure there's no excess thread locker poking out. We always want to do a nice clean install. Remember, you've got to enjoy this gun for a long, long time. So you want to take some pride in it. Now, the other thing that I like about these sights is you can see your sight radius from here to here with the factory sights is about, and I'll move that so you can see it, is about 12 inches. You're getting another 4 inches or so. So you're getting a significant increase in sight radius using these sights. Now the rear sight is installed. I'm going to take out this front sight, or this rear sight, because it's no longer necessary. So why have it in there? Now on my gun, I did install a Dovetail blank. I don't happen to have another Dovetail blank available to install here, so that will happen at a future date, but it's not going to happen now. And hopefully this nylon punch is going to do it. Let's find out. Yeah, that's going to come right out. Back this up a little bit. There. And there's your rear sight. And I just don't like those rear sights. I know you've heard me say that before. I just don't. So we're going to fill that. I think filling that, you don't have to put a blank in there, but personally I like it for a couple of reasons. First of all, it does protect the Dovetail from damage if at any point in the future you need to use it for something. Secondly, it makes the gun look a little bit more finished, a little bit more clean. And thirdly, it's just something that you don't have to worry about snagging anything on, especially if you're in the brush or anything with it. So now that we've removed that, we are going to go to the front sight. And there's your front sight. So we'll set those aside. Now, get this so that you can see it. Now, when you're installing a Dovetail like this, what you want to do is you want to place this such that when it goes in, it's going to slide in about halfway under its own, just under finger pressure. And this one, as you can see, doesn't. It actually gets caught up. So it's just a little bit oversized. And actually it got a little bit stuck there, but we can gently tapping at your Dovetail there. we are going to then adjust this down. The way that you do that is with a file, and what you want to do is simply, and you don't want to take a lot off, and actually you probably can't see it in this picture, but there's actually a little ridge on either end of this sight, and that is what it's made for. It's made to be filed down to fit. So what you want to do is take your file, and you just want to go just a few passes, reverse it, do it the same on the other side. So now you can see that we've taken off a little bit of material there, and it's just going to be a matter of continuing to file and fit, file and fit, file and fit. And didn't take much filing at all to get it so that it comes in about halfway there, as you can see, maybe a little bit more, but that's okay. Now what we're going to do, again, we're going to take some alcohol. We want to make sure that all the oils and everything are off of that. So we're going to clean the dovetail out itself. And we're going to clean up the bottom of the sight. And now what we're going to do is we are going to place our Loctite, our thread locker, in here. And the same thing here. And like I said, mine was so loose when I installed mine, I did not need to file it at all, and it actually pushed right in, and with the Loctite it has held fast and has not had any kind of problem whatsoever. So we're going to get that started, and then we are going to tap it until it is in. There. And that's it, folks. That's the installation. When you install these sights, you want to make sure not to use them. As you know, with Loctite, you want to let it set for about 24 hours. What I'm going to do, actually, before I completely wipe this up, if you could look at this, you would actually see that there's a little tiny bit of a gap between the sight and the block that it fits into. So I'm actually going to go around the whole thing with just a little bit of Loctite. Don't be afraid to be generous there. Let it work in. And then as that sets up, that's going to be quite immovable. And then we're just going to clean it up. And like I've said, these sights are really, I think, a terrific option for the 1022 Takedown, for any hunting type application where you don't want to scope, backup rifle, survival rifle, whatever you want to call it. They look good. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to let this set up. I'm going to grab my other 1022 here, and I'll show you in a little bit more detail what these sights look like. You've got the front sight there, which is that nice big white bar, and then you come all the way down. You really extended your sight radius quite a bit, and then you've got that aperture. So there you go, folks. We've installed the sights, we've installed the target hammer, and we've installed the auto bolt release on this gun. This gun is essentially as upgraded as I think it's going to be. So let's put this back over here. Now, a couple things about the 1022 Takedown here. I did install a single point sling on this. It's SOE sling. which just attaches to the buttstock here. If you wanted to attach a traditional 2-point rifle sling, you would actually need to tap this stock here. There's not a point where you can attach a ring for that. And then you'd need to add a ring up here to where the barrel band is. And those rings are available. But again, kind of getting back to this being a takedown gun and something that's going to be transported most of the time taken apart, I actually felt that the single point sling was the best deal. As soon as you put the barrel, attach it to the receiver, it's together. Your sling is here. You don't need to run it up and attach it to the front, which you would need to do if you were keeping it apart. So I really felt this was the best option for this gun, for a sling. I don't plan on doing anything else to this gun. Whether my buddy with his plans on any additional upgrades will let you know. Please like and subscribe. We've got more content coming. We're just starting this channel. We want to grow it. Also visit us at the1022page.com. We are just getting that up and running as well as part of this project, but we've got an article up that's a full review on this. Working on a review and discussion of various trigger options for the Ruger 1022. We'll also be looking at barrel options. And so we got a lot of good stuff planned for that as well. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned, and we'll see you again. I am the Sin City Gun Guy, and I'm out of here.